I'm Hana Baba, a host at KALW Public Radio. You're about to hear Uncuffed, audio stories made by people in San Quentin and Solano state prisons in California. KALW provides training and puts the stories on the air.
We rolling.
Man, let's get this thing cracking.
Let's get it. Bring it.
What?
Coming at you from Solano State Prison in the rolling hills of the Golden State.
And from the Bay of San Francisco at San Quentin State Prison,
This is Uncuffed.
Today we're bringing you stories about family, intergenerational trauma, and breaking free from our past. First, we're heading to San Quentin. The latest numbers say around 300,000 Cambodians live in the United States, and many of them fled here during a horrific genocide that left over 1 million people dead. Producer Tan Tran has the story of an incarcerated Cambodian who reflects on a life shaped by that trauma and violence.
Shanton Bun is still hardwired from the experiences in his past.
I was taught every time there's a loud bang, I run for shelter.
Shanton survived the Cambodian genocide that started in 1975 when the Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia. When Shanton was 5 years old, his family and thousands of other families had to flee their country to stay alive. When I talked to Shanton about his childhood, he would tell me the craziest things, but in the most matter-of-fact way.
I seen a lot of dead people. When we were crossing the border from Cambodia to Thailand, we had to go in the dark. We always moved in the dark, and I remember clips of moving in the dark, and they're always telling us to be quiet. But every time you go, my mom always, don't look, but you'll see dead people.
The Khmer Rouge would hunt down and kill anybody they caught trying to escape Cambodia during this time, and Shanton remembers a moment when he and his family barely escaped with their lives.
During our journey coming up here, I remember the last night they were chasing us, and we ran into a Red Cross hospital. The odor of alcohol was so strong, and I seen people band-aid, and I just smelled alcohol real strong. We hid in the back, and I thought there were some people hiding with us, because I seen this face looking at me, and I kept on looking, and I was like, damn, he don't blink. And for some reason, I started realizing, oh, that's a dead guy.
I asked Shanton to share his story of immigrating to America with me, and for him, it was a definite culture shock.
When I came to Fort Worth, Texas, it was a new experience. It's the first time I rode in a car, first time I seen snow, first time I lived in a house that wasn't made out of straw, the first time I seen like canned beef, first time I ate beef. It was a lot of firsts.
Shanton had a lot of difficulties transitioning to American culture, and in order to survive, he used the belief systems he carried with him from Cambodia.
In Cambodia, we have a saying, as long as you're alive. Coming here, it was the same mentality as long as you're alive. Because when I watched my uncle and them gangbang, every injury that we had, we never called the authorities because we were scared of them. Where we came from, the authorities robbed us. And like we would not call the authorities, whatever it is.
Shanton grew up and started committing crimes, going in and out of juvenile hall. He was forced to meet with counselors about his bad behavior, but he says the counselors weren't very helpful.
I believe it's just they didn't understand where I came from or what I went through.
Shanton says he didn't trust the authorities to keep him safe. That's why he joined a gang. He saw it as a way to protect himself and his family. It wasn't until he got to prison that he realized why he did these things. Shanton's not alone either. There are other children of war in prison, people who have seen extreme violence and are shaped by it.
I've always seen myself as a survivor, and it was surviving through any means. It was robbing, either stealing, killing. It led to the way I live my life. It led to my crime. It led to my belief system, the way I thought, the way I interact with humans, period. I didn't understand that until I came to San Quentin and started taking groups and start realizing and looking over my life, because I don't talk about my life until I got here. They're like, you have to talk about it.
Shanton's still healing from what he lived through in the Cambodian genocide, but at least now he's talking about it. From San Quentin Radio, this is Tan Tran.
That story was produced by Ton Tran from San Quentin. There's a program at San Quentin called Roots, or Restoring Our Original True Selves. It's a restorative justice program that helps Asian Pacific Islanders process the trauma from war or genocide and the way that trauma is passed on from generation to generation. Chanton Bun went through the program himself. He brings us this next story of a man who learned about his own history with the help of the program.
Before Kevin Nguyen came to San Quentin State Prison, he didn't know much about his family's history. Then, he enrolled in the Roots program and started to hear about the experience of other older Cambodian men. He realized he knew almost nothing about his mother's life and decided to ask her some questions. On a visit, she told him about a day that is burned into her memory.
She was in her home waiting for her dad to come back, and my grandpa was a general in the army that fought against these guys, and she remembered kids, soldiers, forcing her to leave her household and to start walking. And when she came out, she said it was just utter chaos. She's seeing neighbors getting killed, little kids riding motorcycles with black and red bandanas just shooting at everyone. She did not know what to do. So she just kept walking.
In 1975, when the Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia, they targeted and killed over 2 million people. Those who served in the military, people who were educated, and even people who wore eyeglasses. Everything that was westernized was seen as the enemy. Kevin's mother was a victim and a survivor of the violence.
There was familiar faces that she recognized that was on the ground, and as she walked closer, she saw that it was her family. My grandpa, her dad, was executed cold-blooded in front of everyone, and not only that, they found out that he was connected to the military, so they slit his throat, cut off his hands and his feet, cut his chest open, and just left him there. And all my mom's mom, her siblings was all dead right next to him.
During that one day, Kevin's mother lost everyone in her family, except for a few relatives, and her experience wasn't unique.
So there's a lot of reasons why the war still matters for a lot of APIs and Southeast Asians, even folks that never been in the countries that were impacted by the war, and even the folks that were born here.
Professor Roger Chung is a leading facilitator in the Roots program.
All right, so let me ask you another question then. So when we think about the word indigenous, I like our working definition in Roots, right?
He's seen a growing population of Southeast Asian youth in prison for violence or abusive behavior. Many of them, like Kevin, have no idea where these behaviors are rooted from. Roger says it is often linked to their family's experience. He starts every Roots cycle by asking, how did we get here?
So some of the things that we've seen for a lot of our Southeast Asian folks, both inside prison and outside of prison, is the trauma that the war often has carried through refugee camps, resettlement, and then the struggles for both the first, the 1.5, the second, and now the third to kind of transition back or to transition and find their place in a society when relationships between them and their home countries have historically been fractured.
Cambodia is not the only country to have suffered. Vietnam and Laos also went through similar violent periods. Professor Chung says that those countries and the people who live in them are still not healed.
A lot of the things that we're seeing, like deportations and a lot of the relationships that we're seeing as a product of those wars, are still impacting people from a policy level, and then it's also trickling down all the way down to personal levels.
Roger says facilitating the program for the past 5 years has also helped build community. Participants are helping each other explore and heal from their inherited trauma.
Roots taught me that it's important to know where you came from, know your history, know how you came to existence into this world. And in order to do that, I had to start connecting the dots, moving backwards, not forwards.
Kevin now realizes how strongly his mother's trauma affected him. By connecting the dots, moving backwards, Roots participants can move forward with their lives. From San Quentin Radio, I'm Chanton Bun.
That was Chanton Bun from San Quentin. Next, we're heading to Solano State Prison. Uncuffed producer Steve Drown brings us this next story about a father and son reunited after decades apart.
Prison is not always family-friendly, especially when it comes to incarcerated fathers and sons. Lorenzo Fosselman Jr. and Lorenzo Fosselman Sr. haven't seen each other in 22 years. They're both life-term inmates, incarcerated at different prisons. Through a strange quirk of fate and medical issues, Lorenzo Sr. wound up here at Solano for a short period of time. We were able to bring Junior and Senior together for the first time in 22 years.
We had scheduled this before, and it got canceled. Right. So I was very disappointed. Very disappointed. And I thought maybe it won't happen. Maybe this is prison, so anything could happen. So I was hoping when I got the ducket last night, saying today, I tossed and turned all night. I really did.
Like I said, I've been anticipating seeing him for about a week now, ever since I found out that he was on the other yard. So I've been looking at the gate to see, just to catch that sight. And so when I seen him in the wheelchair over there, I knew instantly that was him. So I just called out to him. And then when he acknowledged it, he looked up and he seen me. I already knew. So, it felt good. It was an internal thing for me more than the external jump,
Well, when I first seen him, I heard someone say, "Pops." And I immediately looked up, and there he was, his arm raised. Here I am. And I was lost for words, but I had tears in my eyes. When I rolled over to him, because I can't walk right now, I rolled to him, and he just hugged me, and I was lost for words. I couldn't say anything. I just grabbed him, and I just held him, kissed him on his forehead. He didn't like it, but, I'm still processing that I've seen my son for the first time in 22 years.
Has it been what you guys thought it would be?
That and more, actually, but it takes me a while to process things, so I'll probably process this for,
Well, I tell you,
for quite a while before I determine.
How about for you, Senior?
Yes. It's more than I imagined. It really is. I didn't think it would happen. We both got life sentences. We both in different prisons. So what was the odds that we would be in one spot at the same time?
I'm looking at father and son, and you see the nose is the same, the eyes are the same, the smile is the same. They have gestures that, it's just incredible how similar they are. I asked you in our first discussion, if he was sitting in front of you, what would you like to say to him? Is there anything else you want to say to him?
That I am probably on the path that I'm on the page that I'm on, and I have the confidence that I have, largely in part because of the role that you've had in my life. And even the years that I was difficult or hard-headed and I didn't pay attention, I always listened. I never blamed you for the choices that I did or didn't make. I never went with that when I got to the age of being able to understand things. So I understand now what it was that you was trying to tell me when I was a teenager. I'm able to think freely. I'm able to, be secure within myself. A lot of people I know, they never knew their father. They never had any positive encouragement from their father.
I take responsibility for the train wreck I've caused for my life and the problems you had with yours. Because I know if I would have been there when you were a teenager, your life wouldn't be the way it is. Because I never wanted your life to be like mine. In this environment, I never wanted this for you. Every day and every night, it hurts me to my heart to see you sitting here in blue. It really does. But I'm proud of you. The sacrifices you've made, the man you've become, the journey that you're on. it's just powerful.
And I appreciate that. I always will appreciate that, and I always love you for it.
I love you too, son.
That was Lorenzo Fosselman Jr. and Lorenzo Fosselman Sr. After that meeting, Sr. was transferred out to Valley State Prison in Chowchilla. They were both interviewed by Steve Drown, a producer at Solano State Prison. And now our final story. Sanyika Shakur, formerly known as Monster Cody Scott, was in prison in the early 90s when he wrote the book that made him famous, Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member. Shakur paroled from Solano State Prison in 2019. Before leaving, he went to the Uncuffed studio to talk with producer Brian Thames.
Monster Cody. Few people in life have ever met a real monster. But Cody Scott, the infamous and famous 8-tray gangster Crip, was a true monster and destroyer. He chronicled and glorified his urban terrorism in a book 20 years ago that made him a millionaire. But today, he is monster no more.
All right. Morning, brother.
Good morning. J-Moss Boy. That means good morning in Kiswahili.
Some people have known you as one person. And what was that name that you used to be called?
My street name is Monster.
And your name now you prefer to be called?
Sanyika. My name is Sanyika Shakur. And Sanyika means unifier, gatherer of his people, Swahili. And Shakur means the thankful. So I'm a thankful gatherer of my people.
That's a beautiful name, brother. You know that, right?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You had a history, but according to what others say, your name fit, your old name. What could have been the turning point for you to even go in this direction?
Actually, I'm still turning. I came from like a middle-class family. Like my godfather's Ray Charles. My father played for the Rams, when the Rams were the Rams. My mother, man, she was a hard-working woman. And so we lived in the Crenshaw district before it became the Rolling 60s area. And so I came from that area and that family and that class of people. But my mother moved to a bigger house in 1972. She moved into the heart of the West Side Crips. But while my father was on the football field and Ray was in the studio, my mother was at work. I was in the street. I was looking for surrogates. I was looking for somebody to say, good job. I remember when I was 11, I had been bullied by the school bully, and I walked through the gate, and the dude said, man, let me get a dime. And I said, I don't got a dime. I had a dime in my coin pocket. He said, all I find I can have? I said, yeah. I didn't think he was going to search that pocket. He robbed me. But then he took it a step further and he hit me in the mouth. The next day, I joined a gang.
And how old were you again?
I was 11. On June 15th, 1975, I graduated from the 6th grade. And I went home. I went out the window because my mother wanted me to clean the house up and I didn't want to. So I went out the back window and I found some homies. And they sponsored me in the gang. I got jumped in. I got drunk. I got high. So in one day I became a graduate, a drug addict, a gang member, and a murderer. And that was the most exciting day of my life.
After you wrote your first book, you sort of reached the financial mountaintop, but you went home more than one time and you came back to prison. What happened, brother? How did you fall off?
I never got the disease of addiction under control. From 84 to 88, I'm in prison. I get out, I go right back to the hood, right back to what's popular. And at that time, what was popular was cocaine. So I got on that, just like before I had gotten on PCP. I'm just lucky that heroin didn't come through there, because I would have got on that. If it comes, I'm going to try it.
You being serious, bro?
I'm being serious, bro. Because I was doing such terrible things that I had begun to not like me. But my real problem has been that I just don't care.
Didn't care or don't care?
I didn't care because now I'm learning to care. Those of us who are revolutionaries, we use this term revolutionary suicide. And revolutionary suicide usually is, we use that for people who have been criminals or lumping. And then we try to have them transform into revolutionary mentalities to commit class suicide as a criminal and become a proletariat, become a revolutionary. But what happens too, that term can also be used in my situation as I was a criminal, I became a revolutionary, and people expected me to commit class suicide as a successful writer and become a noted author. And to me, I didn't want to go that way. I didn't want to be the go-to guy when they said, what about gangs? Because that's not what it's about.
Just recently, some older brothers have described you using this word, educator.
I knew that if anything was going to transform anybody's mentality, it was going to be education. Because the educator, even while he or she is educating, is being educated.
Absolutely.
It's a dialectical relationship.
Right.
And that has been the main eating point of Monster. That Monster has been eaten away by knowledge of self and kind. But it's been such a long history of contamination that the disease of criminality and self-hate and fratricide is so deep, is so all-imbuing, that it's easier to talk it than to walk it.
Let me share some with you. Excuse me, interrupting you. See, this is what I wanted to do, what's being done right now. I don't know if I told you the name when we got started. I called it Monster No More.
Wow.
Because you speak in life right now. That wasn't what the first part of your life was. Your life was bringing death. You were a destroyer. You weren't just a monster. You were a destroyer.
No doubt. No doubt. With me, I've been in the hole for 30 years. I've been validated for 30 years. I've been out a few months here, a few months there. So people don't know me. They know what they read and they know what they hear. But you're hearing about me through someone else's interpretation who may not even understand the need to change. Nobody really knows me, man.
So who are you?
I am Sanyika Shakur, man. I'm a regular cat, man. I like our culture. I love hip-hop, man. I love our sisters. I love kids, man. I love camaraderie. I love being around righteous people, man. I love humor. You know what I mean? I love intelligence. And I've gotten sharper and still getting sharper. But I turned all my energy and all my wit and all my charm and all my intelligence into this one thing, banging. And that's how I became a monster.
That was Sanyika Shakur, formerly known as Monster Cody Scott. He spoke with Brian Thames, a producer in KALW's radio program at Solano State Prison. Uncuffed is produced by incarcerated people at San Quentin and Solano State Prisons with KALW. Our theme music is by David Jossi. The work is supported by the Arts and Corrections Program from DRP and the California Arts Council. The producers fact-check content to the best of their ability. All content is approved by an information officer. Friends and family can hear more stories by searching for Uncuffed in their podcast players.